every time I think I have the world of ReZero figured out, the writer seems to throw something in there, and I go, no, never mind. I don't have it figured out like I think I do. I have the witches figured out, the disciples figured out, all that kind of stuff. Nope, never mind. I don't have it figured out. There's got to be only 7 deadly sins in this show. Nope, there's not 7 deadly sins, or maybe one's I don't know anymore. It's crazy, but I love it because every single episode of ReZero feels like they're way too short because they're just that good that I love it to death and I eat it up, and I just cannot wait for the next episode to come up. But yeah, just a very very crazy world that I absolutely love diving in. I am 7 episodes into ReZero Season 2 Part 2 for those that are avoiding spoilers at this point, or as Crunchyroll listed as episode 45. So you have not watched up to that point, please turn us off and come back later when you have actually watched it. But yeah, loving the season so far. I was very, very, very upset with how they ended part 1. It just felt like just a page turn and was not a good stopping point. But obviously, it was for that reason because it just gets crazy from that point on. So that break is technically, there was no other place to put it at this point. But no, opening up part 2 so far, loving it to death. We had so far Oto kind of setting Subaru straight, becoming an ally of his, and somehow managing not to get himself killed fighting Garf. I could probably thank Ram for that mostly, but yeah, that was interesting as well. Subaru confronting Rosewald. Of course, we learned, I believe, in the first part that Rosewald was the one that kind of set a lot of these stuff in motion. I kind of had that. I had that suspicion in my head that Rosewald was the one that hired the 2 killers to go to the mansion. But again, like I said, they finally kind of revealed that and confirmed that as well. It just seems like this whole sanctuary arc is just, let's get into the backstories. It seems like the backstory season so far we've got into Subaru accepting his his past. We got Garf accepting his past. We have a little bit of looking into Rosewald and Emilia's backstory, Beatrice's backstory, Ryuzu's backstory, Ekidona's backstory. So we don't really have many left at this point, but I guess the more questionable thing is how they all tie together, and they're obviously trying to do that currently. They're kind of tying everything together in some way. Ryuzu with Ekidona, Ekidona with Rosewald, Garf probably not trying so much with Garf. Garf was just more of trying to accept his own past, but yeah. Following the challenge of Subaru to Rosewald that he's gonna save everybody because Rosewald wants him to choose so that he can see, I believe, his own weakness, because it seems like Rosewald is just kind of wants everybody to accept the way he thinks, which is that you can't save everybody. He failed to do it, and that's kind of a weakness that he strives on. I'm not sure exactly the full story there, but I'm sure we're going to get into more of that because we just recently really had him being confronted again by Subaru and Garf and Oto. But yeah, moving on to there, we had a lot of development for Emilia, and this is the interesting part because I, amongst many people, was on Team Rem. Still on Team Rem. She's the best character, no doubt. And I think a lot of that had to do in the first season because we didn't really know anything about Emilia. And it honestly, it kind of puzzled me that there was such a huge fandom of Emilia in the first season because we just didn't know anything about her. We never really got into her. She was very few and far between when she was actually in a scene. Most of the focus in the first season was Subaru and Rem, charging out there in the battle together. That was a lot of the focus. And then have Subaru go right back to Emilia was a little bit confusing. But I can say now, after especially the second parter, they've fleshed out Emilia so much at this point. And of course, a lot of that has to do with the fact that she had her memories locked up. She didn't have a character there to explore because it was all locked up. So to really kind of dive into her history, have her go into those trials, get into her backstory, learn about her mother, and oh my gosh, Beetlejuice. This is a sucky thing because in this whole trial that Emilia's going through in order to open up the sanctuary, she's seeing her past. And in this past, we obviously see where It seems like it's post the point in which the whole stealing of the witch happened, and the other witches were taken out. Because it seems like, because they showed Goose, and he was part of this cult that were kind of, I guess, repenting in their own way for following the witches in some way, I guess. And so they see themselves as dirty, and they have to do this whole thing. And it wasn't until Pandora shows up, and what was the other guy's name? Regulus shows up in this area, that suddenly Goose decides to actually take upon him the curse of sloth, and that was really cool. I mean, it like I said, it sucks because you're like seeing this other side of me, like, yeah, so you used to be normal. That's cool. All right, that kind of sucks to see him being normal now, and then it's like, okay, now he's taken upon himself to save Amelia, and I'm like, oh my gosh, now I can't see Beetlejuice ever the same again. Even though I hate his guts for what he did to Rem, he's good. He had to do it. That sucks so much. And then, like I said, him actually eventually killing the mother. It's like, oh crap, this sucks. This sucks so bad. So yeah, that whole backstory was painful to watch. But no, Pandora was insane. The way that she kind of handles Regulus was insane. Just stepping on him and rewriting history was crazy. But no, I think the crazy thing about Pandora that doesn't make sense to me at the moment, I'm sure we'll eventually get this, or maybe it's the fact that I'm assuming there's laws in play that aren't technically in this world, or that the writer's saying, oh, by the way, this doesn't go by what we think it should go by. This is my world. Pandora is like this vanity. And vanity is typically in most writings is pride. They're basically in the same realm. But we already have a pride. Pride was Typhon or Typhon. So I'm like, okay, so is Pandora another incarnation of pride as vanity? Or in this world, do you have the 7 deadly sins? Or in this world, is there more than 7 deadly sins? Because obviously, from a lot of writing as well, is that vanity is separate from pride and it's its own thing. There's a couple other ones. So does this world accept those others as more than just 7 deadly sins, or is Pandora related to Typhon at some point? Or has she taken this upon herself? That's the big, huge question point at this point that I have, is how does Typhon lie in this? Is it that there's just more than 7 and it's that simple? Or what else? But no, I think my only kind of frustration that I have at this point is that it just seems like it's hard to grasp the witches and the apostles and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of different kind of rankings and facets to this world and powers, and trying to figure out why, Regulus is as powerful as he is. Why is Pandora as powerful as she is? Is it because Pandora is a witch and all the witches, and how many witches are there? All that kind of stuff is just, it's like he has so many answers he's giving on a episode by episode basis, but there's so many questions that are constantly being created at the same time. The original author is either very clever or really good at making stuff up on the spot to confuse the hell out of us. Other than that, yeah, obviously getting into the backstory of Amelia, eventually the mother dies, and then Pandora goes after Amelia. Amelia freaking just was decimating her over and over again, but she's rewriting it so she never really dies. Then she opens up she wanted her to open up the door, but she froze everybody in her rage. So we finally get to see Amelia do what we all pretty much assumed would happen, which is freeze everybody. We knew that was eventually going to happen. I'm sure most people were assuming that as well. Yeah. I guess I forgot to mention, before Amelia confronts her entire past, she does get a huge boost from Subaru at that point. Obviously, Puck left her, which does allow her to open up her memories. Subaru promised to stay at her side and fails to do so like an idiot. But I do like that, and again, this is another thing of kind of developing Amelia's character, is giving her character. Her outburst to Subaru just before she went back into the the trials was fantastic. Like that scene was probably the most development I've seen in Amelia ever. It was just her venting her frustrations, absolutely yelling at Subaru. I didn't ask for this. Stop doing that. Stop saying that. It's not that way. I'm not this doll for you to look at. It was fantastic. Like I said, I got so much respect for her as a character in that little scene, and to top off the caking with it, having the kiss at the very end again. Team Rem, but Rem's okay with this, so I'm okay with it. Rem's okay with them all being a pair. That's fine. Um, yeah, I loved Garf's episode though. Garf was fantastic. I was okay with Garf before, but really getting to his backstory, getting in his episode was probably the pinnacle of this season so far. Uh, actually finally had Subaru manifest Sloth to take down Garf, which was interesting as well. But having Garf kind of have a realization of his memories of his past being something he technically fabricated to help himself get over it. The scar on his forehead from him trying to forget her kiss, his mother's kiss, the tragedy that befell his mother. Still curious what happened with the father, if they'll get into that eventually, if maybe his father's still out there. But that was fantastic as well. And then finally, we got really kind of in the history of the actual sanctuary itself, the original Ryuzu and her self sacrifice to becoming the core of the village, which I'm certain that Ekidona was expecting that. I honestly, watching that episode, I don't believe that, even though it does seem to make it less of a painful experience. I don't believe Ekidona didn't expect Rizu to step forward. I think that was all on her plan to begin with. I think that she's too greedy for that. Getting to know why Roswaal loves Ekidona so much was fantastic as well. To learn that he had this kind of overpouring of his ode, and that Ekidona was helping him get rid of that mana and helping him, I guess, restore his honor. He went back and won over his family's heritage and all that kind of stuff was really cool. So finally getting some insight to why Roswaal is the way he is great. But we still have like that gap in the middle there of trying to figure out why we went from Ryuzu becoming the core to Ryuzu being clones for Ekidona. Which again, I'm assuming is because Ekidona was planning that to begin with, and that was just a step in that whole process. She was going to have her be cloned anyways. Uh, it's never always peachy, and the thing that I've always loved about the writers working on Ekidona is that she's never good. like like with the whole situation with her helping Subaru, at some point he realizes, wait, no, you are a witch and you are still technically bad. And then that kind of realization that she's trying to manipulate him was like, oh yeah, that's right. Ekidona is still kind of bad. So it's like, even though you do have this kind of cheerful backstory of how she saved Roswaal, she's creating Sanctuary, Ryuzu and Beatrice love her, and everybody's happy together. And oh, by the way, this evil guy is showing up. Let's make a field to protect them. And oh, Ryuzu is going to sacrifice. It's gotta be in Ekidona's plan, and that's the thing I always have to keep in the back of my mind. She's still technically greed. She hates Amelia to death because she likes Subaru and wants Subaru, and she will go after what she wants. So, yeah, how it got to that point, like I said, is probably all in her plan, but we'll see. At this point, Amelia still has to do two more trials before they can open up the gate. I'm curious if they're just going to, if he's going to go into the mansion at this point, or if they're going to still go through the two trials. Ekidona kind of assumes that Amelia won't have an issue with the next two trials. It sounds like they're combative, like they're combat related. So I'm curious how that's going to work. But I miss Puck. I miss Puck and I miss Rem. That's my only two sadnesses that I have right now with the series. But yeah, Pandora and Regulus fight was insane. Seeing the backstory of Goose was definitely the highlight so far. Garf's backstory was fantastic. Subaru finally gaining some powers with Sloth was great. Curious to see if he'll gain any more going forward. But yeah, just crazy season so far. Looking forward to more. Hope you guys enjoyed my impressions of the season so far. Again, episode 5 on Crunchyroll, episode 7 of part 2. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And as always, if you did, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you can, and y'all take care.